Welcome to Barbie.com.
Do you remember those Flash games from the 2000s on sites like Barbie.com? I do, and I miss them dearly. I don't know when Barbie.com transitioned to a regular online retail page. I'm guessing it has something to do with the discontinuation of Flash. But to my dismay, the games I remember from my childhood are no longer available. However, I was able to find the games available on different sites, so let's go ahead and revisit them over a decade later and rate them while we're at it. Starting off with Superstar Makeovers. Superstar Makeovers is a makeover game that I played a lot as a kid. You complete your makeover, put together your magazine cover. Overall, it's good at what it does. Just a side note, I remember that a lot of these games gave options to print stuff out. I'm not sure what that was about, but because we didn't have a printer, I had like a lot of files saved on our computer. It was kind of weird. But overall, I'd rate this one an 8 out of 10. Next, we have Snippin' Style Salon. In this game, you have a limited amount of time to match your style to the style shown on the left. The amount of time that you have really depends on the style that you're trying to match. And as you can see, it's a little bit harder than I was expecting for a children's game. An issue I ran into is I couldn't successfully beat the game. It's possible, I guess, that there is some kind of detail I'm missing somewhere, but I'm assuming this is some sort of bug tied to the re-upload of the game and the Flash alternative. With that said, I'd give this game a 7.5 out of 10, mostly because the freestyle mode saves it. Next is The Great Scooby-Doo Search. This game has 3 levels, and each level changes how many letters are available as part of like these instructions or this clue on where to find your friend Scooby-Doo. These don't make much of a difference though, they only affect how many things you really need to click on before finding him becomes an option. I remember really liking the music for this game, which is probably why I played it so much. Like before, this game also has a printout certificate available, but this one's a bit lamer, so I'm gonna rate this game overall a 5 out of 10. Next we have the Charming Makeover Studio. My scene is supreme, so this game already starts with a higher rating, that's just the rules. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and just rate this as a 10 out of 10. There's my scene, there's tons of options, and the print option is subtle and not annoying compared to other games. This truly is one of the better makeover games. Next we have Create and Skate. I remember playing this, but I can't recall if it worked properly or not back then, because the re-upload that I found absolutely does not work. No matter what I selected, the result ends up being the same. Over here I'm trying my hardest to make Barbie spin for her dear life, but I just get like the same shimmy and the same music, so it was pretty disappointing. I'd rate this upload a 1 out of 10, but if it worked as intended, I'd give it probably an 8 out of 10. Next is My Scene Shopping Spree. My Scene games were on Barbie.com, and they were definitely my preferred games. This is your standard themed dress-up game. I vividly remember playing this with my sister. She would get to do one outfit and I would get to do the other. That's how we would share the computer. Also, Y2K fashion is trendy again, so this game aged pretty well. This could be an upload specific issue, but you have to restart the game after each, session that you complete. If you don't, then the music from the previous game or like result page carries over to the new session. If you do that enough times, you eventually summon a portal to another dimension, and it really hurts your ears. Overall, I rate this one a 9 out of 10. It loses a point because you're required to select accessories, and some of them are straight up ugly, and that ruins the experience for me. If it's not clear yet, I'm heavily biased, so I save my favorite for last. This game is a short series of mini-games that all revolve around taking care of Chrissy. Although they are randomized, I think we can all agree that the shopping one was the best, but also the most stressful.
Can you choose food for baby Chrissy?
Speaking of this game, the perfectionist in me wants to get all of the food into the basket, but some of the food sabotage that plan by taking forever to get in. The only issue I ran into with this game was when you take her out for a walk, because I could not progress after this point and the game broke. I don't know if that's a re-upload specific issue or if it was also an issue with like the original game on the site. They're randomized and I don't recall getting this one that often, so I can't say for sure, but so long as you don't run into it, it's still a good game. Despite that little issue, it's still a 10 out of 10. In closing, there's like a bajillion other games that were on this site, so I'll make a second part if I can find decent re-uploads of more games. If you have any requests, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching.